Grievous, once a conqueror, found himself at the helm of destruction as his armies devastated entire colonies, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. His victory over the Huk Empire seemed inevitable, yet their desperate plea for help reached the Galactic Republic, invoking the Jedi to intervene. Upon their arrival, the Jedi swiftly defeated Grievous's forces, pushing them back to their homeworld. The Republic's sanctions ravaged Kali, plunging it into poverty and starvation, fueling Grievous's hatred for the Jedi, whom he blamed for the suffering of his people. In a twist of fate, Sandhill of the Banking Clan made Grievous an offer he could not refuse. In exchange for his services as a ruthless enforcer, the Banking Clan promised to lift Kali's burdens and restore its economy. Grievous, though disgusted by his role as a corporate pawn, saw this as a necessary evil to prevent further suffering for his people. He became a feared agent of the Banking Clan, leading brutal campaigns to reclaim debts, though he could not escape the yearning for the warrior's bond he had lost. He found his new companions in the soulless B-1 battle droids, but they did not satisfy his thirst for true battle prowess. He demanded more elite warriors, the Izvolra, to fight by his side. Surrounded by enemies, Kumar was tragically slain, her body cast into the vast sea, leaving her soul adrift without a proper burial. Shilao, devastated by the loss, embarked on a desperate quest to find her remains, knowing that without them, she would be denied her rightful place in the afterlife. His journey led him to the legendary island of Basi, where gods were said to ascend to the heavens, but despite his pleas, the gods remained silent. Defeated for the first time, Shilao returned home, forever changed. He took many wives, fathered numerous children, but his heart remained consumed by sorrow. Renouncing his name, he embraced his grief and became known as Grievous. Driven by vengeance, Grievous united the fractured Khish tribes, leading them to victory over their enemies. He created the Izvolra, an elite group of warriors, and turned the tide of war. With captured spaceships and newfound technology, the Khish no longer merely defended, they became the aggressors. Grievous and his army swept across entire colonies, conquering and reducing them to ashes, leaving death and destruction in their wake. The Huk Empire crumbled, victory almost within Grievous's grasp. However, the Huk, unable to fend off the relentless assault, sought intervention from the Republic, framing themselves as victims of Khish aggression. The Republic responded, sending the Jedi to the battlefield, where the Sith forces were pushed back, forced to retreat to Kali. In the aftermath, the Republic imposed harsh sanctions, plunging the planet into poverty and causing the death of thousands of Kalish people. Grievous, now bitter and filled with hatred for the Jedi, saw them as the cause of his people's suffering. Amid this turmoil, Sandhill from the Intergalactic Banking Clan approached Grievous with an offer, in exchange for his services as a commander of their private droid army. The clan would erase Kali's debts and lift the trade embargo. Despite the irony of becoming a corporate enforcer, Grievous accepted, hoping that no Khish would ever suffer enslavement again. The Banking Clan kept their word, restoring Kali's economy, and Grievous proved to be a ruthless agent, reclaiming overdue credits with brutal efficiency. Yet, despite his success, he found himself longing for the comradeship of his former life, working with mindless B-1 battle droids. Determined to rise above this, he demanded more sophisticated warriors, seeking his elite Izvolra to stand by his side. The Banking Clan, wary of other college, feared they would be too difficult to control. To keep Grievous satisfied, they created the IG-100 Magna Guards. Initially disgusted by their mindless nature, Grievous soon saw their value and ordered their reprogramming. He had them observe him in battle, learning to fight like his old comrades. Under his command, the Banking Clan's forces became some of the galaxy's most feared. For a time, Grievous seemed content, ensuring the clan's wealth flowed and his people thrived. He felt like a hero, at peace at last. But fate had other plans. News came that the Huk had launched attacks on Kali, desecrating sacred grounds. Grievous was furious. The Huk had already enslaved and slaughtered his people, and now they sought to defile their afterlife. The Republic had done nothing. Consumed with rage, Grievous abandoned the Banking Clan and rallied his forces for a counteroffensive to annihilate the Huk once and for all. After arriving, the scientist Poggle the Lesser and his team started their work, transferring the failing Grievous's brain, spinal cord, and eyes into a duranium alloy warframe inspired by ancient war droids. His internal organs were sealed in a special sac, making him immune to the vacuum of space. These modifications were far-reaching, severing his ties to his people and culture. His senses were enhanced, his aggression amplified, and a hidden kill switch was implanted under the control of a shadowy figure. When Grievous awoke, he was horrified by what he had become, grappling with his monstrous new form. Standing before him was a figure who explained that his body had been destroyed in a Jedi attack, but the banking clan had saved him, offering him a second chance. The figure introduced Grievous to a leader, Count Dooku, who promised to destroy the Republic and the Jedi. Grievous, consumed by rage and a thirst for revenge, joined Dooku's cause and became the supreme commander of the droid armies. Dooku presented him with a lightsaber, marking the start of a new chapter. However, despite his transformation, Grievous found his new body repulsive, and his memories of his past life haunted him. When Dooku referred to him as a droid, something inside Grievous snapped, setting the stage for the bitter path he would walk as a relentless warlord. When Poggle the Lesser and his Geonosian scientists began their work, they set in motion a horrifying transformation. Grievous's failing body was stripped of its eyes, brain, and spinal cord, which were then encased in a powerful warframe inspired by ancient war droids. His remaining organs were sealed within a synthetic sac, granting him immunity to space's vacuum. This transformation severed his ties to his people and culture, but it also amplified his abilities. His vision grew sharper, his aggression soared, and a secret kill switch, under the control of Dooku, was implanted in him. Upon waking, Grievous was confronted by the monstrous form he had become, overwhelmed by shock and anguish. Sandhill, standing by, revealed that Grievous's body had been destroyed in a Jedi attack, and the banking clan had saved him, offering him a second chance at life. Sandhill then introduced him to Count Dooku, the leader of a rising Separatist movement. Dooku offered him a chance to exact revenge on the Republic and the Jedi, promising to help him destroy them. Driven by a thirst for vengeance, Grievous joined Dooku's cause and was granted the title of Supreme Commander of the droid army. He was also given his first lightsaber, the weapon of the Jedi, whose blood now flowed in his veins. However, the transformation didn't bestow any sensitivity to the Force as hoped. Filled with disgust at his new form, Grievous struggled with the remnants of his past life, and when Dooku referred to him as a mere droid, something inside him snapped. In a furious outburst, he annihilated every IG-100 Magna Guard in the room, declaring he was not a machine. As a final act of rebellion, he demanded a mask modeled after the Mumu skull of his ancestors, along with cloaks reminiscent of Khish warriors for himself and his Magna Guards. Dooku dismissed it as vanity, but deeper truths lay hidden. Beneath layers of cybernetics and Separatist manipulation, the spirit of Kaim Jishal still fought to survive. Despite moments of resistance, the plan succeeded. The demigod of Kali had been reforged into the ultimate weapon. The Sith had their warlord. The banking clan had their enforcer. Grievous had become the tool they intended him to be, forever their slave. As the Clone Wars erupted, Grievous was unleashed in the Battle of Geonosis, where he swiftly cut down all who stood in his way, leaving no survivors. His brutal efficiency impressed Dooku, who took a personal interest in his combat prowess. Months passed, and under the guidance of his new mentor, Grievous trained relentlessly in the art of lightsaber combat. A prodigy with no connection to the Force, Grievous mastered all 7 classical forms of lightsaber combat, even surpassing his master's previous apprentices in raw skill. His power grew, and Dooku, impressed by his abilities, assured Grievous that he would soon have the chance to confront the Jedi. This moment came at the Battle of High Parade, where Grievous led a devastating assault against the Republic, decisively outmaneuvering their forces with his superior tactics. After wiping out most of the Republic's resistance, Grievous cornered the few surviving Jedi, including 2 High Council members, within the wreckage of a downed starship. As the mechanical footsteps of his droid army echoed, the Jedi prepared for their final stand. But Grievous, ever the taunting hunter, promised them a swift death. The battle that followed was one for the ages, with Grievous fighting like no organic being could, his mechanical limbs moved with unnatural precision, striking from multiple angles and overwhelming even the most skilled Jedi. One by one, his enemies fell, leaving only Ki-Adi Mundi to hold him off. Before Grievous could finish him off, a squad of Republic troopers arrived, forcing him to pause. He watched as the Jedi escaped, leaving him to mock their fleeting victory, collecting the lightsabers of his fallen opponents as trophies. As the Clone Wars raged on, the legend of the Night Slayer, a mechanical behemoth, grew, with Republic news outlets calling him the very embodiment of terror. He was feared by the Jedi, his name whispered in dread across the galaxy. Under the command of Count Dooku, Grievous led the Malevolence, a devastating superweapon capable of crippling entire fleets with its deadly ion cannons. His reign of destruction continued with brutal assaults on Republic forces, including an annihilation of a fleet commanded by Jedi Master Plun. Yet, a small group of survivors, including Master Plun, managed to escape, turning Grievous's triumph into a bitter setback. In a blind fury to compensate for his failure, he launched attacks on medical convoys, leaving devastation in his wake. But when he set his sights on the Khalid Shoals Medical Center, the Republic had already prepared. Led by Jedi Knights Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Republic's forces clashed with the Malevolence, narrowly averting catastrophe. Despite Grievous's relentless bombardment, Skywalker's precision bombing crippled the superweapon. In the end, the Malevolence was left broken, Grievous forced to retreat, his pride wounded as the tide of war shifted against him. Grievous, now known as the Night Slayer, had become a living nightmare for the Jedi Order. His reputation grew with every battle, striking fear into their hearts. He was not only a master strategist, but also a relentless force of destruction. After being given command of the Malevolence, a powerful warship with ion cannons capable of crippling entire fleets, he led a series of devastating assaults against Republic forces. His most notorious victory came when he obliterated a fleet led by Jedi Master Plun. But when Plun and some survivors escaped, it marked a significant setback for Grievous, as his secret weapon was no longer concealed. Seeking revenge, Grievous turned his fury on medical convoys, slaughtering thousands of unarmed Republic personnel. His next target was the Khalid Shoals Medical Center, but the Republic had anticipated the strike. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi led a counteroffensive, and despite Grievous's deadly assault with the Malevolence's ion cannons, the Republic fighters fought back. Skywalker executed a critical bombing run, destroying the Malevolence's ion cannon power conduits, crippling the warship. As Grievous attempted to retreat, he found himself outmatched, marking a turning point in the war. Underestimating his opponents proved to be a grave mistake. In a desperate move to secure the Malevolence, Grievous revealed that a prominent senator had been captured, hoping to use her as leverage against the Republic. This act forced the Republic fleet to halt their assault and attempt a rescue mission. Meanwhile, General Grievous, eager to face the renowned Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi, found himself locked in a brief but intense duel, though Kenobi's focus was solely on escaping. During the chaos, another Jedi, Skywalker, rescued the senator and sabotaged the ship's navigation system, sending it on a doomed course toward a moon. Grievous, realizing the battle was lost, fled into hyperspace, leaving the Malevolence to crash in a humiliating defeat. But this setback only fueled his desire for revenge. Grievous quickly struck back, securing multiple victories in the Outer Rim within weeks, capturing key resources and cities and creating havoc across the galaxy. The Republic's hold on the Outer Rim was slipping, and Grievous had proven that his campaign was far from over. His eyes now turned to a new target, the Republic's spy network. The Republic quickly caught wind of his movements and dispatched General Skywalker to intercept. Grievous, hoping to outmaneuver his foe, led his fleet into the asteroid ring of a nearby system, intending to force a confrontation on his terms. However, Skywalker was prepared. He positioned ATTEs on the asteroids, turning them into unexpected artillery platforms, and with Grievous's shields focused on the front, the Republic forces targeted the Separatist frigate's weak spots. Grievous's fleet was annihilated. Realizing his defeat, he abandoned his fleet and rushed to his starfighter. As he attempted to escape, Skywalker nearly shot him down, but just before the final blow, debris struck Skywalker's fighter, giving Grievous the opening to flee into hyperspace. Though he had escaped, Grievous was far from done. He took control of a nearby Separatist fleet and placed a spy droid within Skywalker's forces. The droid began feeding Grievous information on Skywalker's movements, and Grievous also arranged the purchase of R2-D2, a droid filled with Republic fleet data. With this intel, Grievous hoped to strike a decisive blow and end the war. However, just as he was about to extract the data, Skywalker and a Republic strike team arrived to rescue R2. Recognizing the value of the droid, Grievous ordered his Magna Guards to protect the data at all costs while he confronted the Jedi. As he rounded a corner, he stopped, laughing in disbelief. He had expected to find Skywalker, but what awaited him was something far different. Before him stood a young girl, no older than 14, radiating confidence as she ignited her blades. She was fearless, but Grievous, the seasoned warlord, knew she was no match for him. With swift, ruthless moves, he overpowered her, gripping her by the throat, ready to crush her arrogance. Yet, just as he prepared to end her, an explosion rocked the station. Distracted by the blast, the girl used the Force to turn one of Grievous's own arms against him, severing it with his own weapon. She survived, escaping into the chaos. Grievous, frustrated and humiliated, retreated, but not before the name Skywalker burned in his mind once again, a reminder of his repeated failures. However, he was not one to dwell in defeat. Seeking to prove himself, he led a series of victories, conquering 3 systems in rapid succession. But Dooku, his manipulative superior, had bigger plans. The heart of the Republic's clone production Camino was next, but first, the Separatists needed to neutralize the Rishi station. Grievous sent his new droid forces to do the job, only to see them fall to the surviving clone forces, destroying the station and alerting the Republic to his plans. The Republic's response was swift, and for the first time, the Senate placed a galactic bounty on Grievous's head. His reputation as the Republic's greatest threat was now cemented, and the hunt for him had begun. As the battle raged on, the Jedi gained the upper hand with the aid of clones, managing to sever Grievous's legs. Though he felt no pain, the loss placed him at a severe disadvantage. Realizing the futility of continuing the fight, Grievous swiftly eliminated a few clones and created enough of a diversion to retreat to his hidden command center. Inside, his droid assistant A4D informed him that the Magna Guards were temporarily deactivated. It became clear to Grievous that Dooku had set him up as part of a test to prove his strength. If he perished, he would have outlived his usefulness. If he survived, he would prove his worth. Grievous despised being manipulated, but his warrior's pride refused to let this be his end. Meanwhile, Kit Fisto recognized their surprise advantage was gone. Battling Grievous within his castle had become a suicide mission. Before they could escape, the Magna Guards were reactivated, and a rocket was fired into the Republic shuttle, destroying their only way out. Now trapped in Grievous's lair, they were at his mercy. In his repair chamber, Grievous's damaged legs and mask were replaced while his pet droid Gore was unleashed to deal with the intruders. A 4D, questioning why Grievous had chosen to undergo the cybernetic transformation, received the answer that it was his own choice, though the truth was far different. As the duel raged on, aided by his clones, the Jedi managed to sever Grievous's legs. Though he felt no pain, the loss left him vulnerable. Realizing the futility of continuing, Grievous swiftly cut down several clones and caused enough of a distraction to escape to his hidden command center. There, his droid assistant EVA4D informed him that the Magna Guards had been temporarily deactivated for recharging. It became clear to Grievous that Count Dooku had set him up a test of strength. If he died, he was deemed useless. If he survived, he would prove his worth. Grievous seethed at being manipulated. How many times must he prove himself? His pride as a warrior wouldn't let this be his end. Meanwhile, Kit Fisto realized the advantage they had gained was slipping away. Fighting Grievous in his own castle had now become a death sentence. Before they could escape, the Magna Guards were reactivated and destroyed the only way out, leaving them trapped. Grievous, now in control, retreated to his repair chamber. There, A4D replaced his damaged legs and mask, while his pet cyborg, Gore, was unleashed to deal with the intruders. When A4D questioned why Grievous had accepted his cybernetic transformation, the general lied, calling it his own choice. Grievous, consumed by anger and a thirst for vengeance, finds himself confronting the Jedi intruders. He is driven by the loss of his beloved Gore and the destruction of his body, which had been reshaped by the Sith into a weapon. His mind twisted, yet he refuses to admit he had no control over his fate. Upon returning from repairs, Grievous faces a cocky young Jedi, Veb, who foolishly challenges him. With a swift move, Grievous incapacitates Veb, adding another lightsaber to his collection. His true target, however, is Kit Fisto, who manages to escape after an intense duel, aided by thick fog. Grievous, though initially dominant with his 4 mechanical limbs, finds himself on the defensive after Fisto severed one of his arms. But even as Grievous chases Fisto, the Jedi escapes with the help of his starfighter. Back at his command center, Grievous tries to claim the battle as a victory, but Count Dooku, unimpressed, points out the failure in his inability to defeat Fisto, marking a lesson in Grievous's ruthless, yet flawed, pursuit of power. As the transmission ended, General Grievous clenched his fist, seething with frustration. Despite having killed Natarv, fought Kit Fisto to a standstill and successfully defended his fortress, he knew it wasn't enough. To truly eradicate the Jedi, he had to be more precise, more ruthless. Back on Coruscant, the Jedi Council was shaken by Kit Fisto's report. Their fears were confirmed. Grievous was corrupting the Jedi Order itself. The rushed promotion of Nadarv to knighthood had been a fatal mistake, driven by the war's pressures, and it had cost Nadarv his life. His anger and recklessness made him an easy target for the cyborg general. Even in defeat, Grievous left a wound on the Jedi. The war continued to rage, and Grievous, never one to rest on past victories, set his sights on Felucia, a crucial agricultural world for the Republic. Leading the Separatist invasion personally, Grievous swiftly overwhelmed the Republic forces, causing Felucia to fall into his grasp. Not stopping there, he moved to Doran, a homeworld of the Republic's allied Keldors. The attack, initially meant to distract the Jedi, turned into a personal victory for Grievous as he watched his forces decimate the Keldor, savoring their suffering. The humanity he once had was long gone, buried beneath his cold, mechanical exterior. The diversion worked flawlessly, buying enough time for the enemy to retreat from Doran. With the Republic now desperately hunting him, Grievous remained a shadow, striking unexpectedly. His next target was Jedi Master Eth, whom he tracked down and dismantled the ship with ruthless efficiency. As the hull burned and the crew scrambled in panic, Grievous stormed the bridge, flanked by commando droids and Magna Guards, his eyes set on claiming yet another Jedi. The battle that followed was swift, with Grievous overwhelming and capturing the Jedi Council member with ease. Aboard his ship, he reflected on the fight, realizing his sense of honor had faded, and he preferred to let his droid army handle most of the work. The Jedi were weakening, or perhaps he was simply growing bored. His droids were no longer just tools, they were a symbol of his ever-growing power. To strike further terror into the Republic, Grievous sent a hollow transmission to Coruscant, showing them their helplessness as he tortured the captured Jedi. But unknown to him, the Jedi managed to send a hidden message, revealing their location to the Republic. Soon, a massive fleet led by Obi-Wan Kenobi emerged from hyperspace, engaging Grievous's forces. Although caught off guard, Grievous couldn't help but smirk. He had been waiting for this rematch with Kenobi. Grievous's ship seized the vessel of Kenobi, dragging it toward the Separatist flagship. As the Jedi ship was pulled into the hangar, commando droids launched a brutal boarding assault, clearing Republic forces, while the Magna Guards pushed Kenobi toward the bridge to wear him down. Grievous followed, joining the fray. A fierce battle ensued as Kenobi, attempting to reach the remnants of Grievous's former self, reminded him of his past. But the cyborg was consumed by revenge. His speed and power pushed Kenobi to the limit, yet the Jedi had the Force on his side. Spotting a weakness, Kenobi hurled Grievous's Magna Guards back at him, momentarily gaining the upper hand. But Grievous wasn't done. In a fit of rage, he ordered his ship to open fire on Kenobi's vessel, causing explosions that forced the Jedi to retreat for safety. Grievous, meanwhile, broke through clone forces and made his way to his ship, only to be intercepted and forced back by the chaos of the battle. With his ship heavily damaged, Grievous was forced to flee in a landing craft, but debris struck it mid-descent, crashing him onto the surface below. Realizing his chance had come, the Republic moved in for the kill, hoping to finally capture or end the threat of Grievous once and for all. Grievous's ship swiftly seized Kenobi's vessel, dragging it toward the Separatist flagship. As Kenobi's ship was pulled into the hangar, commando droids stormed in, clearing Republic troops, while the Magna Guards forced Kenobi toward the bridge to exhaust him. Soon, Grievous joined the chaos, confronting Kenobi with a few words before attacking. Kenobi tried to reach the warrior Grievous once was, hoping to pierce the cyborg's hardened exterior with a reminder of his past. But Grievous, consumed by vengeance, was beyond redemption, focused solely on causing pain. As the battle raged, Kenobi, one of the most skilled duelists, found himself pushed to his limits by Grievous's brutal speed. Yet, with the Force on his side, Kenobi seized an opening, hurling Grievous's own Magna Guards back at him. Just as Grievous began to retreat, news reached him that his plans had been thwarted. Skywalker and his allies had freed their target. Enraged, Grievous, unwilling to concede, ordered his ship to fire on Kenobi's vessel from within the hangar, triggering violent explosions. Forced to abandon the fight, Kenobi's troops escaped the blast, while Grievous continued to wreak havoc on his way back to his damaged ship. Though he was intercepted by a foe, Grievous managed to flee, taking a landing craft toward the surface of a nearby planet. But debris struck the craft, forcing an unplanned crash landing, leaving Grievous trapped, vulnerable at last. The Republic, sensing their moment, ready to strike, determined to capture or eliminate the Warlord once and for all. Grievous, usually dismissive of his allies, found himself grudgingly acknowledging Ventress's skill, comparing it to his own. But when she mocked his lack of the Force, old animosities resurfaced and he dismissed her comment, focusing on the mission. He commanded her to secure the clone DNA while he led the charge on the barracks. Mid-assault, he collided with Obi-Wan Kenobi, their rematch inevitable. This time, neither was holding back, and Grievous was determined to end Kenobi's life. He briefly disarmed the Jedi, but Kenobi countered with a Force push, pushing Grievous to retreat toward a hangar. The two clashed once more, but before Grievous could claim victory, a Trident warship crashed between them, sending Kenobi plunging into the stormy sea below. Grievous reveled in the thought of his nemesis' death. Assuming victory on all fronts, he retrieved Ventress and retreated from Kamino, only to learn that her mission had failed, marking the battle a loss for the Separatists. The war, plagued by setbacks, had reached a tipping point and peace negotiations loomed. But Sidious, unwilling to let the war end, had other plans, instructing Dooku to sabotage the peace talks. Grievous, following Dooku's orders, executed a devious plan to disrupt the peace talks. He sent a squad of droids disguised as sanitation units to Coruscant, where they infiltrated the planet's power grid and caused a city-wide blackout. This chaos sent shockwaves through the Republic's leadership, convincing them that the Separatists were bent on war, not peace. The attack succeeded in derailing the peace efforts, securing the continuation of the war, and with it, Grievous's relentless quest to annihilate the Jedi. Later, after slaying another Jedi Master in Padawan, Grievous found coordinates in their belongings that led him to a hidden Jedi temple on a jungle-covered world. He breached its ancient halls, sneering at the statues of fallen Jedi Masters. With his lightsabers drawn, he destroyed these relics of the past, demonstrating his strength. As he ventured deeper into the temple, he encountered a glowing waterfall of light, but when he reached for it, he was instead plunged into an endless void. A mysterious voice spoke to him, asking if he sought knowledge, to which Grievous coldly declared his only desire was the destruction of the Jedi. The voice, mocking him, responded, "You speak of destruction, yet you have only destroyed yourself." In an instant, Grievous was no more. He had returned to his former self, Kaim Jishal, flesh and blood once again. Yet, in his desperation, he argued with the voice that told him the truth. He had become something greater, stronger, feared by the Jedi. But the voice, relentless, reminded him that he had sought to destroy a power he did not understand, one he had no connection to. Slowly, Grievous's mechanical limbs fell away, his body disintegrating into the void, leaving only his heart, brain, and eyes. The voice spoke once more, declaring that his attempt to replace his divine, force-connected body with machinery had left him powerless and unworthy. As his remaining parts vanished into nothingness, the vision ended, and Grievous snapped back to reality, gasping. He was still a machine, just as he had been before. Furious, he lashed out at the shimmering portal, but his efforts were futile. The temple stood untouched. In a rage, he called for his fleet, ordering an orbital bombardment to reduce the temple to smoldering ruins. For hours, he stood and watched. As day turned to night, the flames consuming all. But as he turned away, he noticed a faint glow beneath the rubble. The Force had not been destroyed, and it never could be by him. The vision had been right. Grievous, once a freedom fighter with the goal of liberating his people, had long abandoned his warrior roots and enslaved himself, seeking vengeance against the Jedi. In the Vimal sector, General Grievous unleashed the devastating Lodorian brain plague, sparing no one, whether human or Rodian. Millions perished, and life was eradicated from the entire sector. This marked a turning point in the galaxy's perception of Grievous, who had once been seen solely as a Jedi hunter. Now, he was feared as one of the most brutal war criminals, a name whispered in terror across the Republic, perfectly aligning with his strategy of instilling fear. To Grievous, fear was a weapon, giving him a psychological edge over his enemies. His campaign aimed to break the Republic's spirit, and Operation Dur's Lance proved successful, leaving the Republic scrambling to defend its core worlds while the Separatists moved in. In 20 BBY, Grievous kidnapped a Republic ambassador and used him as bait to lure Jedi into a trap. 2 Jedi Knights were slain, and Grievous seized a Monday Calamari starcruiser, capturing a Jedi Master and a group of younglings. He executed the Master, but kept the younglings alive for his cruel experiments. Grievous began experimenting with transferring Force-sensitive beings into droid bodies, hoping to create a new breed of warriors, beings free from the fragility of flesh yet still connected to the Force. Despite his initial setbacks, Grievous remained an unstoppable force in the war, his presence feared across the galaxy. Every defeat only seemed to fuel his hatred for the Jedi and the Republic, driving him to escalate his campaign of terror. His victories were brutal and methodical, beginning with the slaughter of Jedi Master San at Perrin 2, claiming yet another lightsaber as a trophy. His conquest soon spread to Banvar Station in Vandos, alongside his ruthless ally, Dirge, as they set fire to the Corellian trade spine in a series of lightning-fast assaults. The infamous Operation Dirge's Lance saw Grievous strike at hundreds of vital worlds along the Republic's trade routes. His swift conquest of Duro forced a public surrender, a humiliating display broadcast across the galaxy. Yet, it was the devastation of Humber that truly showcased his cruelty. For 1 hour, his warships bombarded the planet's surface, obliterating an entire world and reducing millennia of civilization to molten rock. Unstoppable and relentless, Grievous continued to use fear as his greatest weapon, ever hungry for more destruction. In the Vimal sector, a deadly weapon known as the Lodorian Brain Plague was unleashed, sparing no life form, humans, Rodians, or others. The destruction was massive, millions lost, and the sector was left in ruin. Public perception of General Grievous, once known merely as a Jedi hunter, had dramatically shifted. He was now feared as one of the most notorious war criminals in the galaxy. But this fear was exactly what Grievous thrived on. By sowing terror, he gained a strategic advantage, weakening the resolve of his enemies. His primary goal was to break the Republic's spirit. His operation, dubbed Dur's Lance, was a resounding success, scattering Republic forces from the Outer Rim to the core worlds. With the Republic distracted, the Separatists moved in. In 20 BBY, Grievous took a bold step, capturing Republic Ambassador Ken and using him as bait to trap Jedi on Vandos. When 2 Jedi Knights arrived, they were swiftly defeated, and Grievous captured a Man Calamari starcruiser with a Jedi Master and younglings aboard. After executing the Master, he imprisoned the younglings and began experimenting with a twisted idea, transferring Force-sensitive beings into droid bodies, hoping to create an army of invincible warriors who could wield the Force but with none of the weaknesses of flesh. In the chaos of battle, General Grievous found himself frustrated by the arrival of the Jedi, who foiled his plans to experiment on a group of younglings. Although he managed to defeat 2 of their Padawans, his enemies prevailed, rescuing the children. Furious, he turned his focus back to the larger war, and during the Battle of Honoghr, the accidental release of a defoliator chemical gave him a horrifying idea. By using biological weapons, he could wipe out entire worlds before even stepping foot on them, making invasions child's play. When he presented the idea to his master, Count Dooku, Grievous was shocked to be refused. Little did he know, the war was never meant to be won by either side until the time was right. Reluctantly, Grievous continued to wage his relentless campaigns, including a brutal assault on Boss Pity, where he easily killed Jedi Master Sunbates and cut through the clones. But as the tide of battle shifted, he realized that his mechanical soldiers were being overwhelmed by an unexpected turn of events. In a dramatic confrontation, the legendary Jedi with a purple lightsaber stands face to face with Grievous. With a swift motion, the Jedi sends Grievous crashing to the ground, leaving him stunned. His Magna Guards quickly intervene, dragging the battered cyborg to safety. But as Grievous regains consciousness aboard his ship, his anger boils. His undefeated streak against the Jedi ends in humiliation. Soon, Grievous is thrust into another fierce battle, this time defending a fortress on a distant planet against a Republic assault. In the chaos, he encounters a young Boba Fett, whom he dismissively hurls into a dangerous cluster of poisonous fungus, leaving him for dead. The siege rages on for months before the Republic eventually claims victory. Despite the crushing defeat, Grievous is once again called to protect a leader he despises. Forced to defend the cowardly and greedy N, Gunray Grievous grudgingly responds when Gunray's reckless actions put him in danger. Throughout these battles, Grievous's resolve is tested, yet his ferocity and strategic genius make him a formidable force on the battlefield. Tracked by Republic intelligence, Gunray's life hung by a thread as clone starfighters closed in. At first, Grievous hesitated, almost letting the Nemoyan perish, but he knew losing him would anger Dooku, harm his reputation, and risk exposing Separatist secrets to the Republic. Grievous swiftly dealt with the Republic pursuers, but the damage was already done. Republic slicers had accessed Gunray's Mechno chair, uncovering vital data on the Separatist offensive at Belderon. With this intelligence, the Republic ambushed Grievous's fleet, annihilating nearly all of his ships. The only solace Grievous found was the 27 Jedi who perished in the battle. When Grievous learned how the Republic had intercepted their plans, his fury was boundless. He nearly crushed Gunray's skull, only stopping out of fear of Dooku's wrath. In Chapter 14, the massacre on Dathomir begins. After Asajj Ventress's betrayal, Count Dooku orders Grievous to exact revenge. Grievous leads the invasion, unleashing chaos on the Night Sisters. Hyena bombers decimate villages while droids torch sacred burial trees. Amidst the flames, Ventress challenges Grievous, seeking to turn the tide. Grievous, confident in his superiority, eagerly accepts. Initially dominating the duel, he taunts Ventress, reminding her of their past battles. Yet, he underestimates her determination and the desperation that fuels her fight for survival. Ventress fought desperately for her life, unleashing everything she had in an attempt to bring down her foe. With a skilled strike, she found an opening in his defense, severing one of his hands and knocking him to the ground. The victory seemed within her grasp as she raised her lightsabers to strike, but Grievous, now driven purely by instinct, fired upon her with his droids, wounding her and sending her crashing to the ground. Before he could land the final blow, an army of undead warriors, resurrected by dark magics, surged forward, swarming Grievous. Though they couldn't harm his armored frame, they managed to delay him long enough for Ventress to escape. However, Grievous was ordered by Dooku to abandon the hunt for her and focus on the more important target, Mother Talzin. Cutting his way through the undead, Grievous reached her village, leading his droid forces in a merciless assault. In the heart of the Night Sister Coven, he executed the Elder Shaman who had resurrected the undead warriors, while Mother Talzin vanished into a green mist. With the Shaman's death, the undead warriors fell, sealing the fate of the Night Sisters. Grievous then proceeded to wipe out every remaining Night Sister village, leaving nothing but destruction in his wake. What had once been a thriving coven was now a barren wasteland. The mission, though brutal, was a triumph for the Separatists, as not only was Dooku's safety ensured, but a potential threat to the Sith's grand designs had been obliterated. After a decisive victory, Grievous set his sights on the Outer Rim once again. News reached him that his greatest rival, Kenobi, was at the planet Florum, and the opportunity was too tempting for Grievous to resist. He quickly assembled his fleet and launched a surprise attack, leaving Kenobi's forces in ruins. As expected, the two met on the battlefield, and Grievous pushed his opponent back, forcing Kenobi to abandon his ship. Although Kenobi triggered a self-destruct to deny Grievous any valuable intelligence, the battle was still a triumph for the cyborg warlord. With the Jedi fleet destroyed and Kenobi bested, Grievous looked to his next target, Florum, the home of the notorious pirate king Hondo Ohnaka. This invasion wasn't just another conquest, it was vengeance. Years earlier, Ohnaka had captured Dooku and held him for ransom, an affront that Grievous was eager to avenge. The cyborg warlord stormed Florum, quickly seizing Ohnaka's stronghold and capturing the pirate leader. But the situation took an unexpected turn when Ahsoka Tano and a group of Jedi younglings arrived to free Hondo. Grievous, eager for a chase, pursued Ahsoka's group, eventually forcing their escape vehicle to crash. As the wreckage settled, Grievous emerged, his eyes gleaming with excitement at the thought of adding more lightsabers to his collection. But before he could strike, the Slave One arrived, ensuring the Jedi's escape. Grievous, sensing the Jedi's attempt to escape, engaged in a fierce duel with Ahsoka, who bravely stayed behind to hold him off for her allies. Although stronger than before, Ahsoka was no match for the ruthless cyborg general. Grievous taunted her relentlessly, enjoying the sight of his opponent struggling. Just when he was about to deliver the final blow, Ahsoka used the Force to push him back and flee. With his target gone and the Jedi having escaped, Grievous ordered his forces to destroy the pirate stronghold, reducing the planet of Florum to ruins before retreating. Later, tasked with retrieving a kyber crystal, Grievous arrived on Utapau to oversee its exchange. But the Jedi were a constant nuisance, intercepting the deal and stealing the crystal. Grievous gave chase through the planet's caves, but was forced to retreat after the crystal was secured on a Separatist shuttle. Once again, the Jedi escaped, and Grievous's fury reached its peak. He executed the local governor and refocused on the crystal. Though he thought he had won, the Jedi disrupted the shuttle's course, forcing it into an emergency landing. The conflict with the Jedi wasn't over, and Grievous knew he would have to face them again. When Grievous stormed into the hangar, the air crackled with tension. His gaze locked on Kenobi, and the two foes faced off once again after years of bitter rivalry. This time, Grievous gained the upper hand, overpowering Kenobi, disarming him and tightening his grip around the Jedi's throat. As he slammed Kenobi to the ground, a chilling thought crossed the Jedi's mind: this could be the end. Yet Grievous, relishing his victory, wanted to savor the moment. Instead of ending it quickly, he devised a slow, painful death for his opponent. But before he could strike, Skywalker intervened, rescuing Kenobi, and the two Jedi fought their way back to the kyber crystal. In a desperate move, they tricked Grievous's droids into firing on the crystal, causing it to overload and explode. As the chain reaction began, Grievous realized his failure and fled to his starfighter, narrowly escaping the catastrophic explosion that consumed the Separatist fleet. Defeated, he watched as his rivals escaped once again. Later, Grievous led an assault on Harun Kal, quickly decimating the forces of Jedi General Bilaba. Their duel left Bilaba gravely wounded, forcing her to step down from the Jedi Council. In another twist, Grievous found himself overseeing Operation Titan, a project to create megadroids. But his plans were disrupted when none other than Jedi Grandmaster Yoda infiltrated the facility. Despite his surprise at Yoda's small stature, Grievous relished the chance to face the Jedi Master. Yet Yoda remained calm, undeterred, as he downloaded critical information, dismissing Grievous's challenge with a reminder that the lightsaber was a Jedi's weapon, not for a being like him. Grievous charged forward, his blade a blur of motion, but Yoda, with effortless agility, leapt over him, delivering a swift strike to his faceplate, leaving a fresh scorch mark. Yet, Grievous merely laughed it off. The duel raged on, with Grievous unable to land a single blow as Yoda evaded him with ease. Suddenly, Grievous found himself frozen in place by the Jedi's mastery of the Force, and with a flick of Yoda's hand, he was sent crashing into a wall. Furious, Grievous recovered, his rage intensifying. As his battle droids arrived and opened fire on Yoda, their attacks served as the perfect distraction, allowing the Jedi to escape before Grievous could stop him. Enraged, Grievous crushed one of his own droids underfoot, humiliated by the Jedi's cunning. Yet, as he reflected on the encounter, he realized that Yoda had outwitted him at every turn. Grievous swore revenge. Meanwhile, following Darth Maul's escape, Count Dooku tasked Grievous with hunting down the rogue Sith Lord. Grievous, having previously warned that Maul was too dangerous to leave alive, now followed his master's orders, directing his fleet to the planet Zanbar to force Maul into a desperate position. Grievous understood that victory wouldn't come easily. Unlike the Republic's clones, who had faced the droids countless times, Maul's Mandalorian warriors were much more unpredictable and dangerous. As the battle raged on, the Separatist droid army stormed the Shadow Collective stronghold. In the midst of the chaos, Grievous himself entered the battlefield, cutting down Mandalorians with his lightsabers. He soon encountered Maul, but rather than fighting him directly, Grievous first sent his Magna Guards to wear Maul down. Once they were defeated, Grievous engaged Maul, but despite Maul's strength, Grievous proved to be the greater threat, having already exhausted Maul's energy. Grievous kicked Maul back, mocking him for the loss of his forces. Yet, Maul refused to surrender, calling in reinforcements as his starfighters bombarded the battlefield, forcing Grievous's troops to scatter. When the dust settled, both sides had suffered heavy casualties. Maul managed to escape, but his army was decimated. Grievous reported his victory to Dooku, noting that Maul had taken severe damage and would likely seek help from Talzin. Meanwhile, Grievous's spies reported that Mandalorian warships were gathering, and he suggested launching a swift attack on Maul's remaining forces. However, Dooku advised caution, reminding him that their main goal was to locate Talzin, whose powers were feared even by the Sith. Grievous, suspicious that Talzin was aboard, led his fleet to Ordentel, determined to obliterate Maul's forces and Talzin. Upon arriving, Grievous commanded an orbital bombardment. Once the dust settled, Dooku, accompanied by Magna Guards and a droid army, descended to search for Maul and Talzin. However, Grievous sensed something was wrong. The warships that had drawn them there were missing. His instincts proved correct when the Mandalorian warships reappeared, launching a counterattack. Amidst the chaos, Maul personally boarded Grievous's command ship, cutting through droids to reach the bridge. A duel ensued, with Maul overpowering Grievous and holding a lightsaber to his throat, forcing him to deactivate his droid army. This led to the capture of Dooku as well. Held as prisoners aboard Maul's ship, Grievous and Dooku were leveraged for bargaining with Sidious. However, the Dark Lord dismissed Maul's demands, saying he had no use for either of them and would let them die. Maul then separated the two, sending Dooku for interrogation and placing Grievous in a heavily guarded brig. As Grievous was escorted away, he warned Dooku that it would be unfortunate if he had to add Dooku's lightsaber to his collection during their next encounter. Unexpectedly, the Republic attacked Maul's forces on Ordentel, and Dooku used the Force to unlock Grievous's cell, giving him the chance to escape. Without hesitation, Grievous unleashed his fury, tearing through his Mandalorian guards with sheer strength, breaking their bodies with each brutal strike. Finding an escape pod, he swiftly fled to rendezvous with his Dark Master. Maul had to be stopped. Following his master's orders, Grievous and a squad of battle droids tracked Dooku's signal to a desolate world. Cloaking their ship, they approached undetected, landing on the barren planet. There, they ventured toward the ancient chamber where Dooku's signal led them. Inside, Maul was finishing a dark ritual, allowing another to briefly take control of Dooku's body. As Sidious clashed with the possessed Dooku, Grievous locked into battle once more with Maul. The cyborg's relentless strikes pushed Maul to the edge of his strength. In a desperate move, Maul used a force push, sending Grievous crashing out of the chamber. Though temporarily out of the fight, Grievous fought his way back. Upon returning, he saw the climactic end of the struggle, where Sidious and Talzin were locked in a fierce standoff, Sidious wielding powerful force lightning. Maul, thrown back, attempted to escape as Talzin collapsed, overwhelmed. Seizing the moment, Grievous approached Talzin, igniting both his lightsabers, executing her coldly before a helpless Maul. With Talzin's death, Grievous gave the order to secure the planet, wiping out the remnants of the Shadow Collective. Though Maul escaped, the Sith had dealt a major blow to their enemies, eradicating one of the last major threats to their dominion over the galaxy. In the final phase of the Clone Wars, General Grievous, having already crushed Maul's Shadow Collective, shifts his focus back to the war. He faces Jedi Master Depa Billaba once again, determined to finish what he started. With a fiery snarl, Grievous ignites his dual lightsabers, launching a savage assault. Billaba, now more powerful after gaining clarity from previous defeats, deflects his strikes with ease, even using the Force to push him back. But Grievous relentless, splits his arms to wield 4 lightsabers at once, forcing Bilaba to fight with all her might. Despite her skill, Grievous delivers a deep slash across her back, leaving her gravely wounded. Yet, Bilaba refuses to yield. As the Republic forces close in, Grievous retreats, leaving Bilaba with the weight of her regrets. On Utapau, the Separatists make their stand under Grievous's command, launching a brutal invasion with droids and Magna Guards. Grievous's forces overwhelm the peaceful world, executing those who resist and setting up a formidable base. But despite several victories across the galaxy, including key victories on Datamir and Florum, the Separatists are pushed back, cornered in the Outer Rim. With the Republic's relentless siege, Grievous and his forces find themselves increasingly outmatched, retreating into the shadows of the Outer Rim. The Republic's strategic blockades on key Separatist strongholds stretch their forces thin, sparking clashes across the Outer Rim, Mid-Rim, and colonies, further weakening the CIS war machine. In the midst of this crisis, General Grievous set his sights on a Nexus, a vital planet with crucial Republic shipyards. Teaming up with Admiral Trench, Grievous launched a brutal assault, deploying massive droid forces for a costly battle. Despite their combined efforts, the Republic mounted a fierce defense, and the campaign ended in disaster for the Separatists. Trench was killed, his fleet obliterated, and the shipyards were secured by the Republic, marking another blow to the CIS war effort. Meanwhile, Grievous tried to force the Wookiees of Kashyyyk into joining the Separatists, seeing the planet's strategic importance. However, his invasion backfired as the Wookiees declared war on the Separatists, leading to a full-scale battle with the Republic's intervention, further draining Separatist resources. As the war neared its climax, the Separatists, cornered by multiple setbacks, launched a desperate assault on Coruscant. Grievous, armed with the secret coordinates to a Nexus route, bypassed Republic defenses to strike at the heart of the capital, marking the beginning of a desperate final phase for the Separatists. Grievous's plan was calculated and ruthless. He aimed for the heart of the Republic, forcing the Jedi to abandon the Outer Rim sieges to defend Coruscant and to capture the Chancellor for ransom. The final offensive of the Clone Wars had begun, with Grievous at the helm. Upon exiting hyperspace, his forces clashed with the Republic defense, while Vulture droids wreaked havoc on Coruscant's surface, causing chaos and panic among civilians. Seizing the opportunity, Grievous led his droid army to the surface, engaging the Jedi in brutal combat. As the Jedi Masters rushed to protect the Chancellor, Grievous intercepted them, personally dueling with them atop a speeding maglev train. Despite his skill, the encounter ended when Jedi Master Mace Windu forced Grievous off the train, but Grievous was far from defeated. Rescued by his droid forces, he continued his pursuit. Grievous eventually reached the Chancellor's bunker, where he slaughtered clone troopers and Jedi protectors before capturing Palpatine, ready to escape with his prize. As the battle raged on, Shakti attempted a final stand, challenging the formidable general in a duel, but despite her best efforts, she was no match for the cyborg's overwhelming power. In a twist of mercy, Grievous spared her, delivering a grim message to the Jedi their Chancellor was lost. As Grievous made his escape, Wu caught up, launching a desperate attack. Using the Force, he crushed the plating around Grievous's organ sac, causing the duranium metal to tear into his biological tissue, worsening his already shattered body. Though grievously wounded, Grievous succeeded in his mission. The Chancellor was brought aboard his flagship with the ultimate goal of forcing the Republic's surrender. Meanwhile, the Republic's defense fleet clashed with the Separatists in space. Jedi generals Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi rushed to Coruscant, determined to rescue the Chancellor. Battling through the chaos, the two Jedi fought their way onto Grievous's ship, clashing with waves of droids before finally confronting Count Dooku. As Grievous negotiated on the bridge, he checked in on Dooku's progress via hologram, only to be greeted with the sight of Dooku's lifeless body. Realizing the grim truth, Grievous's emotionless mask remained unchanged, but his words were filled with cold fury. Dooku is dead, and the Jedi are on the loose. They have the Chancellor. Find them, and bring them to me. With a crushing blow, he slammed his mechanical fist into the control panel, obliterating it with terrifying force. Grievous stood in shock and anger, unable to comprehend how anyone, apart from his master, could defeat Dooku. He had failed countless times to best Dooku in their numerous duels, yet now he found himself facing the impossible reality that the Jedi who had conquered Dooku were still at large and their next target was surely him. For the first time in the Clone Wars, he felt a sensation he had long forgotten: fear. As he reflected on his position, his droids informed him of their success in capturing the Jedi and immobilizing them with ray shields. Grievous took pride in this victory, reveling in the thought of having outlasted his master. But soon, he faced Kenobi and Skywalker on the bridge. Though he'd clashed with them indirectly in countless battles, this was the first time they had come face to face. He found himself surprised, seeing Skywalker not as the formidable warrior he had expected, but as a young Jedi, almost childlike. As R2-D2 created a distraction, the Jedi managed to escape. Grievous hesitated, the memory of Dooku's lifeless body still fresh in his mind. In that moment, he shattered the viewport, exposing the room to the vacuum of space. Protected by his life support systems, he was sucked into the void. Gripping a grappling hook, he climbed to an escape pod, realizing that the battle was lost. After the crushing loss of both Dooku and the Chancellor, Grievous faced the grim reality that redemption was out of reach. In a desperate move, he ordered the escape pods to launch, abandoning the Jedi and Palpatine to the doomed ship. Grievous himself was rescued by a Separatist craft and retreated to Utapau, the site of an earlier regrouping. The battle for Coruscant had been a devastating blow, with most of the Separatist forces either lost or forced to flee into hyperspace. As the new leader of the Separatist alliance, Grievous took command, though his victory felt hollow. Despite his doubts, he followed orders to launch a counterattack in the Outer Rim, unaware that his role in the war had already been decided by Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord had other plans, using Grievous as bait to draw Obi-Wan Kenobi away from Coruscant and, more crucially, Anakin Skywalker. Grievous, though weary from the losses and a serious injury inflicted by Mace Windu, complied, relocating the Separatist Council to Mustafar and reinforcing Utapau as his new stronghold. With the Republic gaining momentum, the Jedi made it their top priority to capture or kill Grievous, leading to a fateful confrontation on Utapau, where Obi-Wan Kenobi would face the General in his final battle. Amused by the relentless pursuit of his former foe, but still wary of his injury, the cyborg General ordered his droid guards to take down the Jedi. However, they were swiftly defeated. Realizing that the confrontation was now solely between him and his adversary, the General embraced his warrior instincts, drawing 4 lightsabers for a final clash. Despite his lightning-fast strikes, Kenobi's defense proved indomitable, his mastery of the Force allowing him to parry every attack with ease. As Grievous grew increasingly frustrated, Kenobi adjusted his tactics, slicing through 2 of the General's mechanical arms. Just as the duel seemed to reach its peak, reinforcements arrived, but Grievous, ever defiant, taunted his opponent, vowing the fall of the Jedi Order. With a powerful force push, Kenobi sent Grievous crashing into a wall, disarming him. In the chaos that followed, Grievous attempted to flee on his wheelbike, leading to a high-speed chase. The 2 warriors clashed once more, eventually crashing onto Grievous's landing platform, where their battle turned into a brutal fistfight. Grievous's mechanical strength gave him the upper hand, tossing Kenobi aside. However, Kenobi found an opening in the cyborg's armor, using all his strength to pry it open and expose his vulnerable core. Enraged, Grievous prepared to finish him, but before he could strike, Kenobi used the Force to summon a nearby blaster, turning the tide of their deadly confrontation. With a steady aim, he fired, hitting his target with precision. The shot struck the vulnerable organs, sending the General stumbling back with a horrific shriek that echoed through the battlefield. Flames burst from his eye sockets as his body ignited from within, his final moments consumed in a fiery explosion. The once feared Jedi killer crumpled to the ground, lifeless, and the greatest threat to the Republic was no more. With his death, chaos ensued among the Separatist forces. Without their leader, their coordination collapsed, and the Republic quickly overran the remaining droid army. Meanwhile, on Mustafar, the Separatist Council awaited their doom, unaware that their fate had already been sealed by their master's new apprentice. Back on Coruscant, the Jedi Council received the news of Grievous's fall, and though they celebrated what seemed like the end of the war, they failed to grasp that the true plan had already been set in motion. Just like Grievous, they were pawns in a larger scheme, one that would see them all fall, and the Jedi Order would soon meet its end. If Grievous could have witnessed it, he would have smiled beneath his mask, for his wish had come true.